teenager and pregnant, my advice is, do not be. These words of wisdom were shared in PregnancyStories.net by 15-year-old Charla, a pregnant teenager whose life as she knew it was turned upside down. Here at Upper Dublin High School, my research team and I surveyed 70 students. 97% of the students said they knew of people in our high school who have had sex. Would you want to become pregnant and have your life ruined? Would you want to get a sexually transmitted disease? Good morning, Mrs. Thompson, Mr. Redican, classmates, teachers, and judges. My name is Emily Hirsch-Gordon, and my partner Max Spiegel and I represent the affirmative side of the debate. We agree with the resolution, resolved that all public secondary schools should devise and enact a plan to make condoms readily available to its students. We believe this should occur because it would lower the rate of teenage sexually transmitted diseases, would lower the number of adolescent pregnancies, and expecting teenagers to be abstinent is naive and unrealistic. To clarify, this resolution pertains to schools within the United States of America. Also, according to degreedictionary.org and dictionary.com, a secondary school in the United States is a high school that contains grades 9 to 12, typically ages 14 to 18. According to the Free Dictionary, a condom is a flexible sheath of thin rubber or latex designed to cover part of the male genital area during sex for contraceptive purposes or as a means of preventing sexually transmitted diseases. And readily available does not mean that students will be given, but will have access to condoms, which Max will elaborate on in his plan. To begin, condoms should be readily available to students because it would lower the rate of sexually transmitted diseases, STDs. According to Merriam-Webster, an STD is any of various diseases or infections that are usually transmitted through direct sexual contact. Symptoms include rashes, blisters, fevers, sores, bleeding, vomiting. The list goes on and on. According to the United States Food and Drug Administration, FDA, STDs affect 12 million men and women in the United States each year, many of whom are teenagers, who are likely completely unaware because symptoms do not usually show initially. According to the Guttmacher Institute, some STDs can even cause cancer or lead to death. According to DoSomething.org, 46% of American high school students have had sex and put themselves at risk for the human immunodeficiency virus, HIV infection, or other STDs, while 4 in 10 sexually active high school teens did not use condoms during their most recent sexual intercourse. Every year, 1 in 4 teens contracts an STD. Now, I'm sure most of you sitting in the audience know at least one person between the ages of 14 and 18 who has had sex. Maybe even you. Imagine if you got an STD from having sex. Maybe you were being naive, or maybe it was just a mistake. Would you want to get a life-threatening disease or infection when at the time you might not have even known you were threatening your safety? Additionally, making condoms readily available to students helps lower teenage pregnancy rates. According to Advocacy for Youth, AFY, Colorado.edu, Urban.org, and HealthfulCommunities.org, approximately 1 million teenage women in the United States become pregnant each year. That is entirely too many. An article from Advocates for Youth, written by psychotherapist Sue Alfred, points out how effective the use of condoms are, stating that there is only a 0.02% per condom pregnancy rate, which means only 1 unintended pregnancy out of 4,150 acts of sex. If every teen correctly uses a condom, this would reduce the number of teenage pregnancies from about 1 million to about only 240 unintended pregnancies. Still not perfect, but a significant decrease. The AFY also noted, quote, even though condoms are not always correctly and consistently used, however, with typical use, 85% of teenagers will remain pregnancy-free as long as their male partner uses a condom, end quote. Finally, thinking that today's teenagers will commit to abstinence is both naive and unrealistic. The Medical Dictionary states that abstinence is, quote, the voluntary self-denial of sex. In a February 2013 article from Think Progress, quote, abstinence-only education doesn't work because it's countermandated at every turn by a culture where students learn a lot about relationships from peers and pop culture. This illustrates our point exactly, because in our modern world today, teens are having sex. Simply telling them to avoid sex just will not work. You and me both know that kids just don't listen to their parents when it comes to advice about sex. According to a May 2013 article from Chicago Now, quote, "Teaching about condoms to students does not mean that they are encouraging them to have sex. Rather, they are encouraging them to be safe if they themselves decide to have sex," end quote. And isn't that a school's #1 priority, to keep its students safe? In conclusion, I, Emily Hirschgordon, and my partner, Max Spiegel, represent the affirmative side of the debate and agree with the resolution resolved that all public secondary schools should devise and enact a plan to make condoms readily available to its students. We believe condoms should be available to students in schools because it would lower teenage sexually transmitted diseases, decreases the rate of high school pregnancies, and thinking that teenagers will commit to abstinence is naive and unrealistic. Michael Nutter, Mayor of Philadelphia, said in an interview in January of 2013, quote, "The reality is, many of our teenagers are engaged in sexual activities. Discussion about whether or not they should be sexually active is an appropriate discussion. But if they are, then we need to make sure that they're engaged in safe sexual practices," end quote. And the easiest way to make this happen is to have condoms readily available to students in public schools. Please think of the safety of all of our students, your fellow classmates, friends, and even yourself, and vote affirmative. Thank you.